Did that frighten you? Some of what I'm going to talk today might. That, by the way, is my COVID survivors t-shirt, because I've managed so far not to succumb to this alleged virus. I want to talk a little bit about sources, and the sources that people interested in occult science, which is most of the intellectual class in Europe, in Central Europe in the 16th century. What sources they're using? I've obviously mentioned the Hermetic texts, starting with the Emerald Tablet, then filled out in the 15th century by new texts that are coming in from mostly Byzantium, coming originally from North Africa, filtered through the Middle East, interwoven with Syrian texts, Yazidi texts, Armenian texts, and then coming from Byzantium, from essentially Greece, over to Western Europe. And that's, in a sense, the first and most important source. But of course there are other sources that I mentioned. There's classical sources, which are pillaged for references, but everybody believes, see, there's hidden knowledge. It's not going to be stated clearly. You're going to have to work hard to understand what it's all about. They're riddles that need to be investigated. And particularly also what we find is Jewish texts become increasingly looked at. People start learning Hebrew. They start learning Hebrew in the 15th century, and they're particularly interested in Jewish mystical writing. There's a huge amount of this Jewish mystical writing that are essentially commentaries on the Talmud, but infused with deeply spiritual ideas, often cross-infected, if you like, by other forms of arcane knowledge. And people work through these Jewish texts known as Kabbalistic texts, nothing to do with the Kabbalah, that, what's her name, that female singer Madonna is a believer in, nothing to do with that. The Kabbalah is a massive body of literature which contains some teasing works. And they're looking at these things. And if you have had an opportunity to look at Trithemius of Sponheim on the catching angels in crystals, then you'll understand that Jewish Kabbalistic material is important, because a lot of the religious symbolism, a lot of the terms like tetragrammaton, grammaton, and Hebrew letters are being used as part of magical rituals. That's thought that they possess a certain power, and that they have a certain magical quality to them, in the same way that numbers have a magical quality. Hence the science of numerology. Great lengthy books written on numbers, and that's what makes it so difficult to understand. Trithemius's book Stenographia, which I've given a link to on the Moodle site. Have a look at it. Don't spend more than 5 minutes on it. Just get a sort of feel for it. Is it a book about how to write codes? Or is it a book about numerological magic? Or is it, as some people argue nowadays, a book about codes that masquerades as a book about numerological magic? I don't think anybody expects you to make up your mind, but just have a look at it. And what Trithemius is interested in his catching angels and crystals, treatise, which is there for you to read. Very interesting. Just read about a few pages of it. Just get an idea of what it's about. And it rests upon that idea of cosmic unity that I was mentioning in the last talk. Namely, that everything is related to everything else, and that includes the heavens. And the heavens, consist of stars, and these stars are fixed on crystalline spheres. There are 7 crystalline spheres, and these crystalline spheres hold the stars in place. They're crystalline, meaning you can see through them, they're translucent, and they are moved in different directions. The spheres are moved in different directions. Now, the people aren't stupid. They know that there aren't 7 patterns that the stars move in, that you can't just say there's 7 patterns that the stars move in as the 7 spheres revolve around the Earth in different directions, because some stars just don't play the game. So what is happening here? Well, quite clearly they're being pushed by something else, and that something else are angels. And the angels are pushing the stars in different directions. The angels, therefore, are probably causing the crystalline spheres to revolve, and the angels are, in a sense, putting the entire heavens in motion. Now, if there's a direct link between the stars, the heavens, and the Earth, that they are both interconnected by a web of influences, then it should be possible, just as the stars affect what happens on the Earth, so it should be possible to reverse engineer the process so that things that happen on the Earth start to affect the things that happen in heaven. And what Trithemius of Sponheim is trying to do is actually, if you like, capture an angel. He's fully aware how very difficult this is, that angels don't like to be caught, but he's got various invocations that he believes to be true, and these invocations he trusts will be able to bring an angel down into his crystal ball. And at that point, he can start, well, first of all, he has to check that it's the right angel. And he's got all sorts of methods for doing this, because one of the things that can happen is that you get a demon pretending to be an angel. So there, he's got a few little tricks to sort out that one. And then when you've got the angel there, you can instruct the angel to perform certain tasks, to interfere, if you like, with the heavens, so that things start happening down on Earth. And this is acknowledged as a possibility by people throughout Europe. It's well known, isn't it, that 1588 the Spanish Armada comes up the Channel. Sir Francis Drake sees them coming along and says, "Time enough for another game of bowls." That's what everybody says. No, he's actually waiting for the Spanish fleet to pass by so he can go and hit them in the back. Meanwhile, horses have ridden fast from Plymouth to London, saying the Armada is coming. And what does Queen Elizabeth do? She calls her magicians, and she gets the magicians to use the latest magical techniques to bring about a storm that will wreck the Spanish fleet. And of course, that is exactly what happens. Drake sends fire ships to harry the Spanish fleet, I think, out of Calais, and they then attempt to circumnavigate Britain in order to start again when a storm hits them in the North Sea. Um, so in other words, a very successful magical intervention, but nevertheless it shows the interrelationship here of a belief that what happens in the world below can influence the world above and bounce back through this chain of interrelatedness that distinguishes the cosmos, that is a feature of the cosmos, where everything is interlinked. One can also possibly use dead people for this activity. You can, it's called necromancy, and bring the dead back to life, and they may be able to, they'll certainly have a power of prophecy, and you may be able to get them to influence events in the heavens. This is rather frowned upon, and John Dee, famous English magician, when he ends up in Prague trying to sell his services to Rudolf II, the rumour goes around that he's involved in conjuring up the dead, and he's kicked out. People, most of the time, the church doesn't go that far. The church, it regards occult science as science. It doesn't see anything particularly wrong with this. It doesn't like people who invoke dead people. It doesn't like very most people invoking the devil. But all the rest, I mean, invoking angels, they're on the right side, so there's no problem there. And a very large number of clergymen, like Trithemius of Sponheim, who's an abbot, are involved in occult magic. What's it all about? Well, obviously, part of it's about power. The ability to control the heavens means that you control things on earth. Partly it's also about wealth. We've looked at alchemy, and obviously it's related to gold. Gold is what people seek. They don't seek it just for wealth, because gold itself is the most perfect of metals, and it corresponds to the sun, which is the centre of the universe. They sort of know it isn't any longer, but it doesn't matter. It's spiritually there, and beyond all that, beyond power, beyond wealth, is this idea of perfection, perfectibility, that one will become perfect, that the magical activity and the engagement with occult science will make you a more perfect person. And a lot of the rituals involved in alchemy are about purging yourself of evil thoughts, being pure in order to undertake the experimentation. Got a picture here. This is what alchemy does to you. It brings you out of the swamp and out of here, your negritude, and converts you into a blessed person, a person who is pure and is good, in the same way as gold is good. And beyond all that, it provides you with an understanding of the whole nature of the universe, that it provides the key to understanding this whole cosmological world. And that cosmological world is eventually summed up by John Dee, who sums up the entire knowledge and essence of the universe in a single monogram. And by staring at that monogram in the same way as I hope you stared last night at three unrelated objects, by staring at that monogram, what he calls a monad, you will gain an apprehension of the nature of the universe and the nature of the cosmic forces which are playing around you and which you yourself may be able to harness. The final point. If the universe is in harmony, in cosmic equilibrium, what does that say about the now unified Catholic Church, or increasingly unified Catholic Church, and divided Protestantism, which looks like being in tune the most with cosmic harmonies? Thank you.